I'm very happy that we can meet each other like this. We all have so much in common. You know, both of you lived in America. I don't think I had time to write that, but I think that's given you both a perspective on what we don't want to do, which is go to follow the American model. And it's very, very helpful that there are people who can be ambassadors in that way between a culture that has gone so far in the direction of being shaped by corporations, by media, you know, that creates insecurity, and cultures where there is still more community, more intergenerational connection. And of course, in both Japan and India, there is still a lot more of that than in America. So I was hoping that maybe very briefly, each of you could say a little bit about how the pandemic has strengthened either the path towards the global or the local, meaning the path towards top-down, speedy, competitive economic development, or something more human scale, something more community-based. And then that we, especially you two, have a conversation. Manish, do you want to start?
Good to see both of you. Happy World Localization Day to everyone. I think the what I'm seeing from India is the pandemic, in terms of its strengthening the global economy. The biggest way, obviously, is really really expanding the amount of fear that people have. You know, really putting a deep-rooted fear, which almost creates a kind of fascism, where you can't question certain kinds of authority, you can't question certain kinds of decisions because they're all being taken for the quote-unquote public good. And I think that fear then, as we're seeing now in India, is translating into handing over all kinds of power now to global corporations over the food systems, for example, and the agriculture system. The government just recently, a few days ago, very strangely, I mean, and on one level it sounded very nice, was advocating for policies on localization. But actually, all of the policies are handing more power over to the global corporations over food and production. And particularly in the agricultural sector, lots of power is being handed over. And lots of decisions are being made very quickly, overturning labor laws and overturning environmental protection laws to push through certain kinds of projects. So we see a lot of that happening, and I think obviously everyone's talking about the increased amount of surveillance that will also be now accompanying with this crisis. Many people are using the word surveillance capitalism. But on the other side of it, I think we are seeing, you know, for at least a certain class, a very important pause, you know, a possibility that is being opened up in the cracks to pause and reflect on, you know, what is the purpose of life? Why am I here? What am I really doing? Why am I on the rat race? So I see a lot of friends also in that pause and trying to do some serious soul searching. And also, you know, being able to, I see every day, you know, friends, they're putting pictures of their entire family, you know, 20 people, 30 people living together, the grandparents and the grandchildren and everyone in between, who are, you know, first time in their lives spending so much time together. I see, you know, that kind of reweaving of the fabric of family relationships also happening, and also obviously so many cases and stories of mutual aid and people really helping each other, even when the government and the corporate system has kind of disappeared in terms of actually helping a lot of people in distress. Lots of community mutual aid efforts are showing up.
It's certainly my information from around the world is that that is a general pattern, and I hope that's true in Japan as well. how do you see things in Japan?
Oh, Japan too, we have a very, there are two different movements, and it's very contrary right now. Like Manish says, our government is also trying to make more totalitarian society right now. Like a government colluded with the large companies and the corporate media in Japan, and the movement to push the whole society toward totalitarianism. For example, corporate media in Japan repeatedly highlights horrifying pandemic information. So it's causing people to panic, right? And in the meantime, legislation favoring governments and large corporations has passed through the diet, one after another. Like for example, about a month ago, embedding surveillance cameras in every corner of society. It's called the Super City Bill. And that manages everything with AI, you know, Google or Alibaba or you name it. And that bill has passed the House of Representatives in April. But no one knew about it because the corporate media was heavily focused on the news that like celebrities were infected with COVID-19 and blah, blah, blah. So people were focusing on like a stupid news, and the media was silent about the Super City Bill. And in the Super City, the companies like Google or Alibaba hold personal information of all residents. Like in the city, and in the city, only a few people are free to change the rules for their business. And they can just ignore the current law, and which is not right in a regular time. And the law was so dangerous that it had been withdrawn 3 times in the past. So the government resubmitted this time while the people were panicking in pandemic. And this time it passed easily. So, and also the government also requested the platform operator as mobile phone companies to provide personal data on the history of people's movement and service users in the name of preventing a spread of infection. But the public wasn't too skeptical because the media streamed COVID-19 horror news every day, you know, like those news every day. So I think the global crisis like pandemic justifies the system to the authorities to monitor the whole nation. And I see this is obviously a shock doctrine technique. You know, the government passes dangerous bills when the people are panicking and stopping thinking due to the major disaster. So that's one thing that is really scary. And also, let me give you another example. A food and agriculture seeds bill. This is a new thing. It's about our seeds in agriculture, especially in a local level. The new seeds bills has also been submitted under the COVID-19 emergency. This is a law that strengthened the seed patent by eliminating the right of the farmers to self-seed. Because Japan has an enormous number of native seeds in everywhere. And local farmers kept it for a long time. And that keeps local agriculture, food culture, communities, and environment for a long time. So family farmers and local communities have protected local seeds. But the government with the global corporation, they want to take that rights away from farmers so they can sell their own seed, like a genetically modified seed or whatever the commercial seed with a patent. So they try to pass this bill under the COVID-19 emergency as well. And so those things have been happening one after another. That's one movement.
Did you say that they actually managed to pass the seed bill as well? Did they pass that?
They submitted.
Okay.
And they thought no one would know.
Yeah.
Because the corporate media was on their side and spreading stupid news every day. But this time, the different movement comes up because of COVID-19, a lot of Japanese people, especially women, realize that, globalization is not functioning in the crisis because we depend on so much on imported food. We depend on so much on the surgical mask made in China, so we couldn't get it. And we don't even have, and we have a best healthcare system in the world. But now we don't have a medicine, vaccine, nothing. So we have to do it on our own. And then they realize that, we have to buy local. We have to buy local food from local farmers because we have to raise our immune system. And then the mother started to exchange information through SNS, Facebook, Twitter, and whatever. And they started watching YouTube instead of TV because we all had to stay home. So people started getting access to a new information source other than corporate-owned media. So many mothers started to exchange information. Also, how we boost our children's immune system. Okay, where can we get the safe food? Where can we, we can't depend on the big government because they don't do anything about our business. Or, we're losing our jobs, but there's nothing the government can do to us. So we have to, help each other in the community. Where's local farmers? Where's local community? Where's local stores instead of big chain supermarket? So people, especially women, mothers, started to exchange this new type of communication. And then some very few people have been raising a voice about this seed bill, including me. So we are spreading the information through YouTube, Twitter, whatever. And then, so people started to realize that, catch it. Oh my God, we don't know about it. What is this seed bill for? And then a lot of mothers start thinking, okay, where can we get information? Where should I call? What should I Google? And a very few people, small group of people, including me, who are giving their information, and they are spreading so fast. And then mothers and small farmers started calling local politicians. I was telling them, it seems that the law is being made by Congress, but focus on your local politician because they have their right to decide what they're doing in the small area like you live in. And then they realize that, we have no access. We never ever even call or fax or email to a local politician. You know, usually there's a huge distance between those two. You know, local government, they probably don't know anything about it, or maybe only during election. So I said to them, no, call them and say, you know, they ask them to put their own local legislation to protect your local seed and food, diversity, community, food safety, or environment, because your local government have a right to do it. And then they were so happy and they started calling, collecting a signature because of the internet, because we all had to stay home. It was spreading so fast, unbelievably fast. And then they can get signature very easily from all over Japan. And then
was this also with the help of the Armada Son, the former minister?
Oh, yeah, she's in the group. Yeah.
We're also going to be talking to him, and he's been working with, you've been working together, haven't you?
Yes.
And he's a wonderful leader also in this.
Oh, he's amazing. He's very, very wonderful man. He used to be in the diet, so he knows their trick. So we are all doing this, spreading through internet, and usually, and then the government says, you can't get together. You can't get any, you know, more than 3 people. No, you can't get together. Stay home, you know, watch TV. So instead, we use the Zoom, you know, like this.
Yeah.
Internet conference. And this was much better because now we can get together 300 people, 400 people. You know, before it was like we can get probably 20 people, 30 people max. But now it was expanding like crazy. So one of the congressmen told me that this is very weird because now we get crazy amount of phone calls all of a sudden about this legislature. And I said, oh, what kind of legislature is that? And he doesn't even know the detail of the legislature. But he said, oh, yeah, but, you know, we get so much phone calls and faxes and emails, and I don't know what's been happening.
You know, this is also very interesting that you say he doesn't know, because a friend of ours who's a member of parliament in the UK says that regularly people on the left and the right will go to vote, having been told to vote yes or no on Bill 230 or whatever. No idea what it's about, if it's about food or technology or
oh my God.
They just vote as they're told, the number, and then they go back to the bar to socialize and drink. Come to, because, you know, it's too large scale, it's too specialized, and yeah, so there are such important lessons here about why we need to localize and why we need to have more power over our seeds and over our community health at the local level, talking to our local representatives who have to be much more accountable.
Yeah, I bet you everything that these mothers are an expert right now compared to the congressman, right?
Exactly.
Local food. And then they said to me, oh, we had no idea. You know, sometimes we vote, but, you know, a lot of people don't even go to vote. But they say, oh, we have this great tool, but we never realized that that's in our hand. And then they get so excited. And then every day they exchange information. Oh, you know, my groups put 20,000 signature today to this man and this one. And the funny thing is, like, they call the congressman, and the congressman, you know, talk really down on them because they are just a housewife. But then they recorded everything, and it spread it all over in the Twitter. So
this is such a wonderful story, because also for me, you know, on World Localization Day, we're going to be celebrating this work, which is mostly women. the real workers taking us towards greater ecological and community health, and a deeper psychological and spiritual health, it is primarily women. But Manish, you're one of those rare men who has been a leader of this too. So you see a similar pattern in India?
I think India is, there is definitely, I think what I was hearing and what Mika was saying also, there's interest, all of a sudden a very strong interest around rebuilding our immune systems and really talking about all of the things around how to reclaim health and our own understanding of health. And I do see women and grandmothers really leading those conversations and things. But in terms of like, I think India is it's so much of this has become embroiled in this nationalism, a sense of nationalism and a fake nationalism, I would say, and or a corporate nationalism, if you want, that a lot of people are still, trying to, I think, like I'm saying, this campaign that the government has just launched, this program, Atmanirbhar, which means self-reliant. So, so like all of we can see the language all being played with and manipulated and to create more confusion. And things like that. So I think people are, this was just announced a few days ago, so people are still trying to sort through what are the details of it and what's being planned. But there's such a, the day that was announced, I got at least, 40 or 50 messages in social media like, oh, congratulations, the Prime Minister is really listening to your guys' message on localization and things. So I was like, I'm not so sure about that, but so.
And I think also there, I would just like to say too, that I find that at the top of these large institutions in government and corporations, it's almost impossible for them to actually be in touch enough with what we're talking about to be genuinely supportive. And very often when they actually want to promote these changes, many of them are completely unaware of how destructive it is, because they just don't have the bigger picture. So I think it is quite important that we, realize that it's much more to do with the structures than it is to do with individuals.
Yes, for sure. I think the other thing, as I was referencing earlier, like so many people I see, friends who are working in kind of, one could say almost meaningless corporate jobs are really, having been put at home now, are really questioning that whole, lifestyle of, getting up every morning, going to the office, spending late nights in the office, missing time with your family. And so I see that, it's going to be very interesting for a lot of people who are going to be, who are questioning, why are we trying to, what are we really running after in that? And what are we losing out by trying to pursue the, American dream in a sense, The other exciting and interesting really thing I've been part of is, there's a lot more now questioning around the education system. So as more and more people are, their children aren't going to school, they're trying to figure out what to do. And I think a lot of people have tried schools, particularly to force kids to sit in front of the screen for 4 or 5 hours a day. And luckily, kids, I think, have a lot of innate wisdom and common sense, so they resist that. And so I think, the first month there was a lot of effort to kind of enforce that from schools, and now it's kind of really, kids are finding ways they figure out ways to kind of escape the screen in terms of classes on the screen time. And I think there's more and more now also, questioning of, why are we wasting so much time preparing for an examination system? Because a lot of kids were just automatically promoted in the schools here. So they're like, it doesn't really, all of these things we're spending all this time on doesn't really matter. And I think, so we're getting a lot of interest in people who want to really rethink what kind of education is really relevant for their families and for their communities and for their local economies. One of my friends, we were talking yesterday, so there's a lot of young people who have migrated back to villages because of this. And he had just done a survey that with about 500 of them in his area, and majority of them would actually prefer to stay in the village now if they can find meaningful work. So we are collaborating in our Ecoversities Alliance on, trying to now start to think what kind of learning can help young people stay in their communities and actually start to rebuild meaningful lives in their communities and a meaningful local economy.
And this is, of course, where education and the economy are completely linked, and they always have been. The beginning of the modern education system was completely to train people to be obedient and to conform to the needs of industrial production. And that's why we've been factory farming our children, just like we've been factory farming food, and it's disastrous, both ways. Is there some change? Yeah.
I was just saying that, like people in India, I think, many people have heard about the farmer suicides that were happening in India, but I think the education system has been used systematically to murder farmers. No child going to school really would dream of becoming a farmer. It's like the worst option for them. It's the most humiliating. It's used as curses. If you don't study, you'll be forced to be a farmer, be with the animals, or be outside all day in the sun. So this whole, disconnect from the land and from community, it starts with schooling, actually, factory schooling. And it's interesting that even, I've seen many places, that teachers in many rural communities have become the agents for the land mafia. They are connected because they're connected to they have some connection to the urban machinery, to the government machinery, and they know who's in the village, what land can be captured and extracted from, and all of that. So they've been many communities now. I've seen teachers becoming the middlemen as a side profession, for this.
Oh. Now this, of course, is a bit different in Japan, isn't it? Because people have left the land a long time ago. But there is a bit of a trend back to the land, isn't there?
Yeah. Actually, this is funny because in Japan, education is a very big system. Like we all go to, parents all go to send children to the school, like no question about it. But what's been happening right now is the kids are getting more and more mentally ill. Know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because of the system, it's very detached from nature, and it's really expect children to give answer which is expected by teacher instead of being creative. Yeah. So more and more children are being under the drug, what do you call it? Like Prozac or
antidepressants. And also anti-anxiety.
Yeah.
And I cannot believe how prevalent that is throughout the Anglo world, Australia, England, America, probably the highest numbers, but it's spreading everywhere. It's so scary.
It's a huge market.
Yeah.
And the children's the huge target, because once they are under the drug, even after they become adults, they're still on the drug.
Yeah.
So they can keep on selling a drug.
Yeah.
But so in a school, the government puts more and more pressure on the teacher. So teacher being under the pressure that, oh, my class has to be very quiet, So if teacher sees any children or any kids, talking or not really quiet, teacher instantly says, oh, he has something wrong, he has some issue, he has some problem. and send him to the doctor and get on a drug. So what's been happening is that we have 700,000 people, 700,000 people, population, who cannot go out of the house because they are so scared of being socialized.
Yeah.
They are so scared of making a mistake.
Yeah.
And then these days, those people are starting to go back to the rural area, go back to the nature, because that is the only way to, get their mind back to them.
So this is what you mean, hikikomori.
Yes.
Hikikomori. So hikikomori is a name for what was about 1 million young people who refused to ever leave their bedroom. And it's very interesting that in the outside world, people haven't heard about this, whereas we should know about it, because in most countries, this depression, anxiety, and problems among young people are increasing dramatically. In Japan, I think because people were more community-minded, parents would keep them in the home. In a place like America, they might have ended up on the street or in, homeless on the street. But this fright, exactly, this fear of not succeeding and being under so much pressure to conform in the education system, and like Mika said, with no creativity, no ability to actually think for yourself, but just rote memorization. And the teachers, as well as the students, are being pressured to digest more and more and more information as part of this techno-economic, fast-paced, competitive global economy, where every national government has actually announced we are changing government to make ourselves more competitive in the global economy. What that means, competitive in the global economy, means we are training our children to suit the needs of giant global corporations that are competing in this competitive, fast-paced, cutthroat arena. To do what? To do what? Governments, many people still believe that it's the only way to create jobs, it's the only way to grow the economy. This mantra of more free trade, more global trade, is really the big pressure that's killing us. I mean, do you know, in Germany, the highest number right now, I think, of nervous breakdowns is among teachers. Well, this was before the pandemic. I mean, now everywhere, health workers are having nervous breakdowns, committing suicide, because there are too few people dealing with too many problems. And the same thing in teaching. And here we are on a crowded planet where the most abundant renewable resource, overabundant, people are being squeezed, so we can't afford people. We can't afford enough teachers. We can't afford to have enough carers. And we can't afford to have the people on the land who should be paid well to produce the most important thing that we produce, which is food. So it is, I mean, I just hope so many people will listen to us and try to help to join this movement to wake up to the bigger picture.
Yeah, we haven't. Go ahead, Mika.
No, I was gonna tell you guys this story about this woman that I met. She runs a nursery school, and then for some reason, a lot of parents, many parents in Japan whose children have that mental problem, they send their children to this nursery school. And what they're doing in this nursery school is that first they change food, like what do you call it? School lunch.
Yeah.
Completely organic. No chemical. And then this is the first thing she said to the parents. Okay, we're gonna change the diet. No chemical, completely organic from local. And then these, there are a lot of local grandma, grandfather, you know, those farm, right? And she's getting ingredients from local farm, and then, you know, cook the lunch together, completely organic. Then what's going to happen within a month? The children start feeling the what do you call it? Taste.
Taste, yeah.
Usually,
appreciating the flavor.
Right, under the drug, they don't even feel the taste of flavor.
Yeah.
The first thing that comes back when you get rid of chemical from your diet completely. And then they start, you know, they are very, they're like ADD.
Yeah.
They're very problematic. They can't stay for 10 minutes. But that stopped. Within a month, they get so calm and they start, you know, being very nice with their friends, and they start communicating with other children. They are changing completely.
And you're saying this has happened, that within a month, by changing the diet, she could see these big changes within a month.
Huge change with their activity. They don't, you know, they don't bite, they don't fight, they can, you know, they can sit still, you know, very natural, you know, how the kids should be. And she said, oh, wow, so this is about the chemical. This is about our, what she says, bacteria in our
stomach, yes, in our gut.
Yeah. And she said, oh, because we're putting so much chemical on
the land.
On the land, now it's attacking children's intestines.
Yes.
Because, you know, the land, you know, those two bacteria are the same, right?
Yes.
So she decided to create the independent communities in Shimane Prefecture. It's completely chemical free, and you know, they're independent of their energy, their education, their money, you know, whatever you name it. It's totally independent community. Now she's trying to buy a land and then trying to talk to the local politicians. And this is a huge, huge project.
And you know, what I would also want to underline is that it is our great hope that on World Localization Day, and generally people who hear these reports from around the world, that they will realize how important it is to start those local projects, but also to keep up what we call big picture activism, so more people can hear about this. Because as you said, Mika, on the TV news and in the mainstream media, you never hear about it. So people don't realize that many of the problems that are afflicting them and their children can actually be solved much more easily than they think if they can link up with a community project like this. So I hope that she keeps speaking out while she also starts the local project, or at least that she stays in touch with you, and that you as a journalist keep writing about this and doing this webinars, because we need also those voices to spread the word, to let people know about this path, this other path in the fork after COVID. So that's also what I see Manish's role as. You're both starting projects and spreading the word and trying to change the education system.
I think a lot of this system operates, the game operates on making people feel like they're alone, and actually the problem is in them. It's not, you know, you're not, you know, you're using plastic, or you're doing this, or you're doing that, and that's why all these problems. And people they're not able to see the larger systemic the system is actually rigged and set up to push us all in a different direction. That's not good for our own health or our communities and for the planet. So I totally agree with you. The big picture activism has to be balanced with our local, on the ground solutions.
Yeah, and the goal of the big picture activism is to actually change policy at the national level, but that will require international collaboration, because we need to change the treaties so that governments mandated by the people, that there has to be a democratic process whereby governments start setting the standards to protect human and ecological well-being. So we should probably bring back the term protectionism. We should say protecting the health and well-being of our people, which includes secure livelihoods, meaningful, secure livelihoods, and absolutely ensuring that the health of the water and the soil and the air is part of that is the inseparable human and ecological health. And we need to be able to protect those. So the new treaties that we need will be reversing the current system whereby big business blindly, sometimes many good people inside those big businesses, there are a lot of good people, but they don't understand that increasing global trade and rolling out the red carpet for global media conglomerates, global competitive, even educational institutions. Now the universities are starting to advertise to get more and more foreign students, and they're competing with each other to get bigger numbers, and all the time reducing the quality is not even the right word. They're basically all the time eliminating knowledge about complex living systems, the reality of the living Mother Earth on whom we depend, and the complexity of human beings. That's being eliminated in favor of training us for this rollout, essentially for robots. We're heading towards the one fork in the road now after COVID, with the totalitarian changes that roll out the red carpet for the corporations, is now including romanticizing robots and pushing us in a direction where we will dump even more human beings on the rubbish bin or rubbish pile. But again, very few people are looking at that bigger picture.
But I think we can get there with very simple questions like, where does my food come from? Where are my clothes coming from? All of these things that are day to day. If we actually ask a little bit deeper why with those very basic questions, we can very quickly get into the big picture activism. It's not an abstraction thing, but the thing starts to open up and become very clear if you start asking these basic questions.
Unless Mika, any other things that you can tell us about what's happening in Japan?
The seed law that I was talking about, the government just decided to put it off.
Oh, good.
So it's not happening, at least this season, they gave up.
Oh, they gave up.
Yeah,
that's a victory. That's a victory.
Yeah, that's like incredible, because, usually they just pass what they want, pass them, because, the media is all on their side, right? With the corporate on the media, and usually people are not aware of anything. Yeah. But, this time it's different.
That's so exciting. So that's a really good news story from Japan. That we're so grateful for your work, and for your Armada Son. We'll also have on the World Localization
I'm very happy, and but now the other side, the government side, is starting to attack us. So we have to get together and then be wise.
I would also urge you to really consciously develop allies and colleagues around the world. I think it's one of the biggest protections against what will be attacks, because there is so much money at stake and this tragic rat race in this financed casino. So there's big, big money and it will be used. So I've always, for 40 years, I've tried to urge my colleagues in different countries to reach out much more across borders. I discovered years ago that when someone is resisting some of these attempts, which have been many, you know, so even way back with just hybridized seeds that were patented before genetic engineering, as there were people aware of how destructive they were, and again, it was about corporate profit, it was terrible quality of food, and so even then, the people who stood up against that and who became famous in their own country, the media managed to either silence them or marginalize them.
Right.
So that then my idea, and which is why partly why I've ended up working so internationally, was that if you bring in a new name and a new face, then the media doesn't yet have ammunition to marginalize them. And so this sort of idea of having a strong international movement is very important. And it can also protect you if you really are getting under attack, that there will be other prominent people from other countries who know what you stand for and who are on your side. So I would urge you to do that, and also help now to spread the word even about our World Localization Day. If you have allies in other countries, get them to join in, and for all of us it can be a type of,
that's true,
not just protection, but it's also giving a weight.
Yeah.
And creating sort of a forum which can generate more respect for this position.
That's true.
And they hear from many different people, and some of them professors, some of them former ministers, some of them ordinary housewives who are generally not respected enough. That when there's a collection of voices like that, it can really help.
Absolutely, absolutely, absolutely. I was also thinking that, you know, those movements in Japan that we may want to educate them about how media has been collaborating with the corporation.
Yeah.
Because, you know, unbelievably, you know, a lot of people still believe that mainstream media are telling us the truth.
And sadly, even people who are quite left-leaning or environmentalists don't realize the extent to which they become influenced by the main messages. And there's been a lot of co-optation just now, as with local and self-reliance, the sustainability, ecological, sustainable development goals, which many people have accepted as a genuine improvement, a genuine alternative. They haven't realized that it's very good language, but in practice, the commercialization, the competition are continuing.
They don't read the fine print.
They don't what?
You need to read the fine print in all of these things. They're all ultimately, you know, the language of public-private partnership is like almost in all of these documents, you know, which is basically handing everything over for free to the corporation.
Corporation, that TPP or EPA, all those stuff. People need to be aware of how money, you know, how money goes from where to where.
Exactly. Follow the money.
All about the money. But you know, many times those movement, they are lack of those literacy about money and finance and all that. And I think that's a very, very important issue about that. We, you know, we understand how the money works, what kind of money behind the scene.
And also, you know, when you talk about the media as something separate, but actually the media is corporate. You know, these are giant corporations.
Giant corporations.
They are linked together with the money making. and literally money making, meaning who has the right to print money.
Yeah.
People think the Bank of England belongs to England. No, England belongs to the bank. And just recently, under the pandemic, in this difficult period, there's been more bank bailouts. And our friend and colleague Ellen Brown has been writing about it. Do you know Ellen Brown, Mika?
I heard her name.
Ellen Brown, yeah, she sort of started a public banking movement, and it's very clear about the need for this first step. We want to decentralize even more and encourage local finance institutions, but at a policy level, the first step would be to at least regain control through genuinely democratic process, you know, a discussion of the money system.
Very important.
Because of the pandemic, there's a threat of moving everything into digital money.
Oh, yeah.
And that will be a huge support for giant corporations and the destruction of literally billions of livelihoods.
Yeah.
You know, the actual paper allows for much greater independence and decentralization. It's mainly more about that bigger picture, about the connections, you know, like Mika was saying, the connections between the money, and as you say, paper is outdated. It's a digital game, and it's run by robots.
Yeah.
It's unbelievable.
Yeah.
A robot.
Algorithms.
Absolutely.
And
You know,
who owns the robot, right?
And that robot has figured out that you make lots of money at the top if you destroy biodiversity, community, cohesion. It's a robot that knows that dividing people from each other and encouraging ever more intense competition, allowing for this invisible hand of the economy to reach across the world to mine and then tell you, oh, look at this nice little clean renewable energy. You know, your little mobile phone, it's so small. Well, its imprint, its ecological footprint, linked to built-in obsolescence, where we're supposed to buy a new phone every year, is an absolute disaster environmentally. So it's not, I mean, don't you feel, Manish, that too can be discussed in relatively simple language, although a lot of people are very addicted to the technology.
Yeah, I think that, I mean, my fear with COVID is that addiction is only going to grow. That's the problem. We know very simple technologies of like touch and, you know, giving a hug or giving a warm pat on the back or things. So these are actually the things that keep us human, you know. And like, so Zoom is great for communicating, but if we lose those other technologies of what make us human, you know, this will lead us down the path of, you know, this becoming more and more mechanical in different ways, or more robotic in our own ways of actually seeing and understanding. A few friends and I were talking like this screen is very flat, and being so if this is almost, you know, there is a, you know, there's a benefit for being able to communicate, but our communication, we need to notice how it's being, you know, all of the senses, all of the ways, the body language, all of the other subtle ways which we communicate and connect. This medium doesn't let us do that. And I think if we lose that, then over time we lose something very precious for our own humanness.
Yeah.
Well, I think especially for children. Yeah, Mika, go ahead.
You know, people are getting more and more sick.
Yes, for children, it's very traumatic to be put in front of a screen for 8 hours a day.
Oh, yeah, that's terrible. And now we're having a 5G, you know, 5G.
Yeah.
You know, that's horrifying to me.
Yes.
Yeah.
You know, Japanese government put 5Gs on a lot of schools under the pandemic. So many parents are not even aware of that because they're at home.
Yeah.
I'm horrifying of that.
5G is spread all over Japan.
Yeah, it's getting there. It's
Oh,
getting
wow.
there.
Yeah.
It started 2 months ago from the mobile phone company. And now the government is saying that, we have to do the online education because that's a new trend after COVID-19. Online school, online education it's going to be a very good trend. In order to do that, we have to have a new, we have to have a faster Wi-Fi.
Yeah. 5G.
5G. The 5G has a lot of problematic.
Ecological health. Yeah.
I think it's very important that we do try to warn about 5G, and yet it's becoming so difficult because the people who speak out against it are being marginalized terribly.
Oh, yeah.
And many of them are trying to make the link between 5G and the virus and thinking that it was caused by that. I don't think there's very much evidence about that. It's certainly very hard to prove. I think that with this virus, it's fine to just say, we just don't know. We don't understand. It could be industrial agriculture. It could be the lab in Wuhan, maybe 5G. We don't know. But I think what we do know is that we don't actually want to move into a world where our children and all of us become more and more dependent on screens, on robots. We become more and more isolated, and that 5G is a big step in that direction. It's definitely a step towards replacing more people on a crowded planet. And we have to do everything we can to get out the message that overpopulation is a problem. We would be, having less impact on the natural world if there were fewer people, but overpopulation has nothing to do with unemployment. It's got nothing to do with most of the serious pollution and ecocide and climate change. Nothing. It has got everything to do with a techno-economic system that's been replacing people, destroying their livelihoods and creating massive pollution. So the message we have is actually very positive, because the fact of many people now is a fact that could actually help us to heal the ecosystems that have been destroyed by techno-economic ways of doing things. The industrial agriculture is the most obvious one. We now need people who can actually pick the apple that is ripe. Doesn't matter if it's big or small, that can sell in a more local market, every size and shape, diversity, and more meaningful livelihoods. And not just that, we need in every school, in every hospital, in everything we care about, we would need more people caring for our children, for our elderly, for life, and to restore life, to restore community and ecosystem health is going to require more people instead of fewer. So this, for me, is the big plea against warning people about preventing 5G in this systemic way. That we know. We don't know about what caused the virus. We don't know a lot of things, but we do know that we don't want to go down that path. And I would argue that most people would agree with what I'm saying. But most people don't have that bigger picture. So
that's why, like you said before, we really need to make this issue international instead of domestic, because in Japan, if I say 5G, they're gonna, I'm gonna mobilize like hell. But if that is an international issue, then that's different. Because then I have a lot of huge group of people behind my back, then I can speak up, then that's totally different. Even if they said, it is just like a radioactive, like nuclear power plants. We have the same problem in Japan because the government always say, oh, you can't prove that. So you can't stop us. But then, so what we are doing is like we just keep on spreading the truth.
Yes. Yes.
So so people can think, in their mind.
Yeah. And even if only the truth is, we have no idea of the long-term health effects of radioactivity or 5G. Therefore, we should not do it. How can we be so irresponsible that we bring in something that's going to affect and be put on schools everywhere and affect every child when we don't know the effect? Of course we can't do that. We really need the precautionary principle.
Precautionary principle, yeah.
Yeah.
I think in Europe, precautionary principle is a big word, right?
Yeah.
It is, and it was particularly in Germany. Germany has always been ahead on these things.
Very much.
But it's been weakened in this last 30 years of deregulation, of globalization. But it is there, and there are a lot of intelligent and caring people who would understand it.
So that's another thing, precautionary principle. That's another big word that I would like to spread the whole world.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. No, it's again very scary when you realize the constellation of the worldview that has all this money and that is backing a type of science for profit, whether it's in health and vaccines or nuclear power or so it's very scary agenda.
That's very scary agenda.
Yeah, and it's being imposed in every country.
Mm-hmm.
And this is what's so interesting, what I discovered a long time ago, is that the voices of resistance, the voices of protection, to protect health, to protect community, to protect jobs, to protect democracy, those voices are not getting translated across borders. They remain narrow and marginal within their own countries, and they keep getting stamped on. But the voice of this global confederation, which is beyond our national borders, that is interlinked, that voice gets disseminated everywhere. It's a type of Orwellian fascism, but it's really a fascism where the algorithm has more to say than any individual. And the algorithm is probably more conscious, if you like, of how to extract more and more money. Or it's not even a question of extracting money, it's literally how you get away with putting more zeros after your electronic signals and pretend that therefore you have all this power.
Nice.
So for me, this is also really what we have to understand, is that this machine-like generation of zeros after their numbers does not actually hold any real power. It doesn't hold any real wealth. It's empty. It is emperor's clothes. What gives it power is us. We are giving it power.
Yeah.
And we are giving it power with our ignorance and with our inability to speak out truthfully about where this science comes from that tells us that nuclear power is a renewable, safe energy source. When again, the irresponsibility and how again, precautionary principle, how we can possibly go along with this. And of course, the worst of it is too, it goes hand in hand with a deeply disseminated idea that life before modern industrial production and energy consumption was hell, was brutish and hard. And Steven Pinker and people like this have painted this picture that all the time as we progressed into modernity, we became less violent. So the further back you go in history, the more violent we were. And this all suits a picture of needing more and more energy to become more and more human, more and more peaceful, more and more one world, coming together as one world, one humanity. And that, of course, leads a lot of people who are idealistic to be skeptical about the idea of localizing. But I think both of you know that as you feel deeply connected to living nature and living people, that's when you feel yourself a part of the cosmos, of life. And
Yes.
that's when you become open and tolerant and capable of not just accepting diversity, but loving diversity. All right, goodbye. Love you.
Nice.
Love you both.
Okay.
Yeah.
Hi, Mika. Very nice to meet
Talking
you.
to you, Manish.
Yeah.
That's great.
Nice meeting you.
Nice meeting you.
Bye-bye.